agents, we've got so many changes coming to the Dark Zone, PvP, normalization, and a lot more. There's a lot here, so I just want to get straight into it. This video will not be scripted because otherwise it could take forever. If you do enjoy this video, please drop a like and subscribe for dedicated Division content. And let's get right into it. Okay, agents, so I'm not going to go in any particular order here. I'm just going to go from start to finish as it was announced in today's State of the Game and offer a little bit of feedback, but mainly it will just be what actually they said. Now, most of these changes will be coming with Title Update 3.0. They've not said when that's going to be. Now, we did think that would be next week, but actually they've delayed the raid and Title Update 3 now until next month's. The reason why is they've stated that they want to make sure the game is balanced, that they want to make sure they have a good go on the current PTS. Before they release the game, they want to make sure the game is in a very good place before they release the raid, and they will confirm when that will be, but again, it won't be until next month now. Now, there will be multiple phases of the PTS. The first will not be about balancing, but more about finding bugs and reporting them. That's what's currently live at the moment. The second phase will focus on PvE and PvP balancing, which the devs have confirmed will be done separately, and they specifically showcase this with some of the changes that they are looking to make. So the devs first wanted to talk about normalization, which is obviously a very hot topic, something I've actually talked about in previous videos and give you my opinion on. Now, first off, what they're going to be doing is they're going to be changing normalization so it actually normalizes to gear score 500. Now, as it currently stands, it normalizes down, so everyone's stats become closer together. So say you've got 60% crit chance, it might be normalized down to, say, 45. Well, with this change in place, it will actually normalize to 500, meaning it will probably stick at 600. 60% crit chance. The chances are you're not going to see, if you've got gear below that amount, then it's basically going to be sort of normalized up. Just how the Division 1 did, you're going to basically be normalized up to the max roll. But anything over 515 is going to be rolled back down to 500. It's just going to be normalized to 500. I think this is a very, very good change. Just like the Division 1, I think it's very good that everything's normalized up. And that way you should see a lot more diverse builds. They have stated that using non-normalized skill power will be active in the normalized mode. So what you mean by that is, say for example you got 1500 skill power, then it's not going to be normalized down, it'll actually stay as it is, and that means that if you're running a skill build in normalized game modes, then those skills and those mods will be active, which is again a great move. If you didn't know right now, if you run a skill build and you go into normalized modes, it gets reduced so heavily that basically you can't use your mods because your mods don't actually get reduced along with it. So yeah, with this change, all your sort of skill power will not be normalized like all other normalized stuff. It'll stay as it is. Now, moving on to the PvP modifier. Now, as of right now, it's currently 70%. That's what they've said. Now, what they're going to be doing is moving that down to 40%, meaning that fights are actually going to last a lot longer. They did say it may be live in the PTS now. They're only 90% sure. So if you're in the PTS, please go check that out. But what it basically is doing is increasing the time to kill, meaning that there's going to be more opportunities to outplay someone, or you can take more damage. They felt as though the time to kill was probably a bit too low, and this modifier should change that. So again, another big change for PvP. They've also confirmed that the skill damage modifier, which was at 20%, will now be 25%. They didn't. I'm not sure if they said damage or just skill modifier in general, because they went on to talk about how long your skill would stay alive. But basically what they've said is that these skills will now be more effective. The modifier has been increased, and thus they're going to be more effective. They have confirmed that they are going to be tuning specific weapon archetypes for PvP only. They have confirmed that there's going to be an increase in AR damage in PvP. That's the only one they said. They did mention that the Pestilence exotic sort of damage or weapon archetype will be increased for PvP alongside its buff in general, which I'll get onto. But they did specifically mention assault rifle damage in PvP is going to be increased just for that mode. It's not going to be PvE, it's just for PvP. And that's what I mean by they're separating the two. Now, they went on to talk about some other changes. They are going to be removing crit chance from hipfire. Again, this is only PvP. They did talk about the LMG hipfire, saying that, you know, this is one of the reasons why they wanted to reduce it. My opinion is, well, it had low crit anyway. No one's using LMG crit builds generally. So, I mean, we'll have to see how it plays out. But basically, for PvP, if you hipfire, then crit will be removed. Now, they went on to talk about DZ changes, and there's quite a lot here, guys. So I'm just going to, again, go through it and basically tell you as they said it. So they are going to be retuning the loot ratio. There will be a lot less non-contaminated loot and a lot more contaminated loot, which I think is something that people wanted, because generally what they want is that sort of cycle where you pick up loot, you go and extract it, and then you encounter players, and that's the Dark Zone. So this is going to be tailored towards that. They've mentioned that name bosses guarantees contaminated loot as well, and they also confirm that there will be multiple loot that can drop from that as well. They are going to be removing the rogue cooldown. There'll still be a sort of toggle cooldown when you're going rogue, but as of right now, if you go rogue and die and then you respawn, there is I think it's about a 2-minute rogue cooldown where you basically can't go rogue again with your team. So you could be watching your team get slaughtered and you can't go rogue to help them. It's absolutely ridiculous, but what they're going to be doing is just removing that rogue cooldown. Once you spawn back in, you are going to be with your team and be rogue again and play basically like how the Division 1 was. They've confirmed that the contaminated bag size will increase to 6. They've confirmed that the tier 1 perk, which increases your bag size, will now increase it to 8. The tier 3 perk will increase it to 10. And the tier 4 perk that used to reduce your cooldown or rogue cooldown is now going to reduce your XP instead. Now, they did talk about sort of server size. This is a hot topic, having 12 players in a server. Currently, it kind of feels like there's not enough players there. And the reason why, and they explain why here, is because generally these servers are not populated because there's too many brackets within the Dark Zone. Okay, so what they're going to be doing is reducing those brackets down to just 2 brackets now. You're going to have the 1 to 30 bracket, and then you're just going to have all world tiers as 1 bracket. So now all the Dark Zone should be populated by 12 players, and in their live testing, having 12 players, certainly if you have sort of 12 solo players in the occupied Dark Zone or whatever Dark Zone it is, they've said it actually feels very lively. And it actually feels like there's a lot of players. So at the moment, I'm not looking at increasing more players. They're just reducing the brackets. So these servers are always populated with 12 players. And that way, there should be enough in there. So that's the reason why they've said it's far empty up till now. Is because it is. It's not been filled with those 12 players. Reducing these brackets should increase the amount of players that are in there. There should always be 12 players. And thus, there should always be that Dark Zone experience. So they did say there's going to be no player count increase for now. But it's one of those things they're always going to be looking at. Now, moving on to the occupied Dark Zone, they have confirmed that there are going to be damage modifiers in place. If you didn't know, there's no damage or PvP modifiers right now, which is why you die so quickly. They've said for now it's just going to be tuned to what the damage modifiers are in current PvP, which is going to be 40%. So there's going to be longer engagements of fight. It's not going to be that crazy time to kill. It's going to be basically the same time to kill that you'd expect from Conflict and Normalized Dark Zone. That's what's going to be in the occupied Dark Zone. Again, I think that's really good news. That should it will feel more like an RPG rather than fucking Call of Duty, basically. So there'll be more RPG elements. There'll be more survivability. So again, I think that's really, really good news. They're also going to be cutting the experience loss in the occupied Dark Zone. If you die in the occupied Dark Zone right now, you basically lose a whole level, and it actually takes a while to get that level back. So this cutting of XP loss means that you won't lose that whole level. They didn't say exactly what it is, but you're going to see a reduce there. Now, one of the main things they talked about for the occupied Dark Zone, some of that's been going around like hotcakes, is Manhunt and Rogue. And I can confirm that Rogue and Manhunt are going to be coming to the occupied Dark Zone. It's not going to be coming as part of the update Title 3 or 3.0 title update, so that's a shame, but it is something they're going to be introducing. It's just going to be your red Rogue and Manhunt, no grey Rogue. It's basically going to be like vanilla Division 1, so I'm really, really happy about that. I know a lot of people are going to be very happy about that. I think that's a great change. Sooner rather than later would be great, but they haven't given us a time yet. It's just good to know that it's coming. Now moving on, they talked about AI patrols. They've confirmed that these will be cut down in the Dark Zone. They don't know by how much yet, but it's something they're looking at, something they're definitely going to cut down on, again, which is really, really cool. They talked about landmark cooldowns. As of right now, if you complete a landmark in the Dark Zone, then it basically comes back right away. They are going to be adding a cooldown to those landmarks. They said it's going to be around 1 minute. It's not a long time, but there's still going to be a cooldown to come. They went on to talk about AI damage and armor. So the changes they're making to AI damage and armor is thus they're going to be less lethal, but they're going to be more survivability in endgame Dark Zone. So they're going to do less damage, but they're going to be a little bit more tanky. We want to talk about Thieves' Den. As of right now, you can't weapon swap once you're in Thieves' Den. So if you wanted special ammo, say on your rifle, but you walked in there holding your pistol, then you can only get it on that, if you know what I mean. The change they're making is that you can weapon swap in the Thieves' Den, meaning that you can actually pick the special ammo you want on the weapon that you want. And they did confirm there will be a lot more to come with updates on that. Now, another massive change as well to the Occupied Dark Zone is this will be the only place in the game that will drop items up to gear score 515. No other place will give you that gear score, only in the Occupied Dark Zone. So the Occupied Dark Zone will give you that power creep that you need. And I can already tell you're going to have one side of the party saying this is great, this is what the Occupied Dark Zone should be, and other people saying, well, why should I have to play PvP just to get gear score 515? I can see both sides of the argument. I'm sitting on the fence with that one. I'm just telling you what they've said. So as I said before, 515 gear will be normalized for any normalized modes down to 500, but skill power, if you have 515 skill power, so say for example you've got skill power that's up to that 515 gear score, then that will remain the same going into any normalized mode. Now, moving on, conflict. So as of right now, player armor bars do not reflect the amount of armor you have. They've said at the moment it maxes out at 10, and that's because there's something to do with the UI. They felt like it looked a bit messy, but from now on, the player armor bars will now reflect the amount of armor you have. And by now on, I mean with title update 3.0. The boosts that come as part of conflict, they are going to be reducing the power of these boosts by 50%. So they're still going to be useful, but they're not going to be the be-all and end-all. Alright, moving on, they are synchronizing the team spawns a bit better, so that now you should spawn on your team rather than you spawn on no one and you run and die pretty much straight away. They've also confirmed that the conflict NPC will now be more visible. Now, I didn't even know there was a conflict NPC. If you guys knew there was, leave it in the comments, but I didn't know about this. There is a conflict NPC that shouts stuff, apparently. They're going to make that person more visible from now on. They went on to talk about skill cooldowns. Apparently they weren't carrying over on death. This will now sort of be respected, and that will happen. And then they went on to talk about exotics. Now, they did say that the direction with exotics is not just about more damage. Now, we knew that. But they appreciate they're not really viable at this point, even though they want it to be sort of fun exotics, somewhat different, some way to play the game differently. They aren't fun. So what they're going to be doing is buffing the DPS on all exotics across the board. They talked specifically about Pestilence. They're going to buff this generally, and they're also going to buff it even more in PvP. And this is the first set of buffs that they're going to be adding, and there will be more to come. Now, they did go on to talk about talents. And I'm just going to read the list here, guys, because there is a lot of talent changes here. And I'm going to do my best to go over everything. If I miss anything or whatever, then let me know. But I'm pretty sure I've got everything here, and I'll try and go over everything. So, first, I'm going to say the talent and then go on to say what it was and how it's changed, if possible. So, Berserk. Now, there's two changes. We've got PvE and PvP changes for this one, I believe. So, Berserk will apply for PvE and for PvP. So 10% weapon damage for every 10% will now be for every 20% max armor depleted with LMG, SMG or assault rifle. And I believe that's actually changed from shotgun, SMG or assault rifle. And I've heard conflicting information. Some people saying in-game it's still shotgun, SMG or assault rifle. But in the state of the game, they said LMG, SMG, and assault rifle. So I don't know which one it is. And this will require 11 or more red stats. In DZ normalized or any normalized, you gain 5% weapon damage for 20% armor. Okay, that's the first talent. There's quite a lot here. So, Unbreakable. 25% is now been... 75% of max armor is repaired when armor is depleted. Armor kit not consumed within 5 seconds has now been put up to 7 seconds. And that's for PvE. For PvP, 25% max armor is repaired when armor is depleted. Armor kits used within the 7 seconds are not consumed. No other active armor talents requires 11 or more blue of defensive mod stats, basically. In the DZ or normalized, the max armor percent is 25%. Now moving on to Frenzy, reloading from empty grants 35, what could grant was 35% is now 25% weapon damage, and from 35% is now to 15% rate of fire for what was 7 seconds is now down to 3 seconds. For PvP, 15% weapon damage and 15% rate of fire for 7 seconds. I hope you're still with me here, guys. I apologise, it's quite messy, but there's a lot here. Now, moving on to Clutch. Crits restore 15% has now gone to 20% health, and from 2% down to 1% armour. Requires AR, SMG, LMG. And then we got Patience. After being in cover for 3 seconds is now 5 seconds. Armour repairs by 5% every 1 second. It now requires 9 or more blue defensive stats, whereas before it was 7. Which, again, is another big change there. Safeguard, and this has been a little bit destroyed here, but we'll get into it. Killing a target grants 150% currently bonus to repairing and healing effects, but that's now down to 50% bonus, and it's gone from 20 seconds to 5 seconds. It also requires you to have 5 offensive stats now, as opposed to what it was before, which was 4. Footnote, the cooldown before it can trigger again is still the same. It seems to be between 15 to 20 seconds. So if you didn't know, there's actually a cooldown on Safeguard. It's between 50 and 20 seconds before it will proc again. Now, Bloodsucker PvE, depleting enemy armor adds a stack of 20% is now 25%. Bonus armor for 20 seconds is now down to 10 seconds. The max stack was 5, is now up to 6. PvP, depleting enemy's armor adds a stack of 20% armor for 5 seconds, and the max stack is 5. It did require 7 blue, and now it's going to require 11 blue. Surgical, 8% has now been reduced to 5% crit hit chance. Spike, headshot kills grant 25% is now 35% skill damage for 10 seconds is now 20 seconds. This requires 5 or more yellow. Unhinged, 25% is now 20% weapon damage at the cost of 25% weapon handling, and before it was 35%. Strained, 10% is now 5% crit hit damage for every 10% armor depleted. It was actually 5% before. This requires 5 or less red. Spotter, 10% is now 20% weapon damage to pulse enemies. Requires 5 or more yellow. Preservation for PvE, killing an enemy repairs 5%. Before is now 10% armor over 5 seconds. It used to be 3 seconds. Headshot kills improve the repair. I believe it's by 15%. Preservation PvP, 5% armor over 3 seconds. Headshots improve the repair to 15% and require 7 defensive stats. So it was 5, it's now up to 7 defensive. Reformation, headshot kills increase skill power and healing by 50%. It was 25% before for 20 seconds, and it was 25 seconds before. This actually requires 4 or less offensive. Before, it now requires 9 or more yellow on this one. Moving on to Entrench, well, there's a lot here. Headshots from cover repair 10% of your armor now, as opposed to 5%, and it requires a rifle or MMR. Now, the Pestilence Exotic LMG. Now, this is taken from the Reddit page, someone who's actually been testing the PTS. They've actually confirmed that their damage on the live game for the Pestilence Exotic LMG was 4.9k. On the PTS is 13.7k. So that's a massive change to the Pestilence Exotic LMG. And again, I'm just going in order here, guys. I'm sorry I'm a little bit all over the place. I just want to get everything out. This is going to be a long video. And then Blacksmith, another talent. Kills with your sidearm repairs 50% of your armor for 15 seconds. It used to be 25% of your armor for 10 seconds. Requires 5 or more blue. Critical, reduced crit damage bonus from 8% to 5%. Kneecap, shooting enemies in the legs was to apply bleed was 10%, is now 15%. And then we got Bloodlust. Swapping weapons within 3 seconds grants 35% damage for 5 seconds. For PvP, it's 20% weapon damage for 5 seconds, and this requires 9 offensive attributes. Wow, that was a lot of talents to go over there, guys. Hopefully you appreciate that. Now, they did go on to talk about general improvements. Players can now toggle... Sorry, let me just go over these general improvements. Players can toggle displaying personal and group loot drops now. Text chat will now lose focus after sending a message. Group tab will be populated with all raid members, and improvements to invalid actions in group chat. So this video is hitting 19 minutes, and that's pretty much everything they went over, guys. There is a lot here. I'm not going to give you my opinion in this video, so to say. I just wanted to get everything out so you guys had everything. I may do an opinion video in the near future. Why don't you leave your comments about all of these changes? Just the general overview for me is these changes sound like they're going in the right direction. Certainly for PvP, conflict, DZ, that stuff's good. Talents wise, I've not really taken it in, and again, I've not tested it to see whether these changes are good or bad, but you guys can let me know what you think about that. Thanks very much, guys, for watching this video. I apologise if there was a lot of ums and all that sort of stuff. This has not been a scripted video. I've simply just wrote everything down from the live stream and then went down it in a list pretty much and just talked about it. So anyway, thanks, and until the next one, Epic out.